Hi, I recently spoke at the BA Summit 2025, the premier business analysis conference in Southern Africa. The conference draws its participants from across the world, the audience and the speakers. We had speakers from North America, we had speakers from Europe, and we also had speakers from other countries in Africa. And those of us who are local to South Africa here also participated. The content of the conference was rich, and I particularly spoke on purposeful design. My talk was titled Designing for Sustainability, a Guide for Business Analysts, with a caveat that this is a developing theory or idea. If I say so myself, the talk was well received, given the feedback following the talk, the conversations in the hallway afterwards, and it looks like I might have sparked some interest or contributed to sparking some interest in the idea of sustainability and the work that business analysts do. One caveat though for this video you're about to see, I'd like you to remember that the video was recorded in a live environment. The room wasn't optimized for video recording, but I wanted to record the video so I can look at it afterwards and see how well I have done. And then people started asking me to share the video, and I thought, okay, I'll share the video as it is with as much improvements as I can manage in post-production. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it triggers something in you, and I hope we can continue the conversation online and offline as the case may be. Thank you very much and enjoy. My name is Oluwakorede Asune. I would be speaking on designing for sustainability, and there would be a few tips here and there for what we as BAs can do in that regard. In case this presentation doesn't hit the sweet spots, if it ends up being a 60 over 100 or a 50 over 100, I have worked in an excuse for myself. And that excuse is that this is a developing theory. So you don't go around rating a piece of work that is not finished. Well, the reason why it's actually a developing theory is that I am humble enough to acknowledge that I don't know it all. There will be opportunities during the Q&A to give me feedback that would inform my thoughts around the subject, and that may end up leading to improving what I'm thinking and what I'm talking about sustainability. But by show of hands, who in the room has an understanding or a definition of what sustainability is? You know, in rules like this, there are no right or wrong answers, but I'll be judging.
Something that is maintainable.
Maintainable. Cool.
Something that will be available in the future, just making sure
Available in the future.
you maintain it in such a way that it is available in the future.
Available in the future. It is addressing current needs in a way that doesn't compromise the ability to meet future needs. So, gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Would you say you drive sustainably when you get on the N1, 10 p.m., you're the only car on the road? Do you drive sustainably? Or do you just floor the pedal and do 180 in a 120 zone? And for that 5 or 10 minutes, you think you are Michael Schumacher and you are on the Formula One track. But the truth is that driving that way could be the difference between whether you have a car tomorrow or not, should something go wrong. When it comes to business, sustainability is looked at as part of the triple bottom line concept. The triple bottom line emerged following the trend that business seems to only do business for the sake of business. There is no care for the people in the business. There is no care for the people in society. There is very little care for families of people who actually work in business. Business says, my business is 9 to 5. Make these widgets, put them on this shelf, grab that widget, add a few more features to it, and take it to the market. That's our business. And people said, but wait, some of the activities of business is ruining people. Maybe not deliberately. Water bodies are getting polluted, forests get cut down, long-standing ecological systems are getting disrupted. I joke with my wife and my kids that at some point, we would only have pictures of lions to show the future generations, because we've done so much in our bid to hit the bottom line. We've done so much to remove their habitat. So these guys are homeless, and if they roam into the city, we're going to shoot them. So eventually the lion population would diminish, maybe to zero. And if we agree to that, the world is beautiful, not just because humans are in it, but because the trees are also in it, because the other plants are in it, because animals are in it, then maybe it's important that we factor in the effects, deliberate effects or inadvertent effects of our actions on society, on the planet. And a second bottom line that is also considered is people. The people who work in your business, for those who own businesses, are they better off because they work in your business? Or is the rate of divorce going up because the husband works for you or the wife works for you? But that's how some of our workplaces are. It's so demanding that workers don't have time to live life after work. Businesses increasingly are making commitments to not just track and report on the single bottom line, which is profit, pure profit. Total revenue minus total cost equals profit. They are actively, MTN is a signatory to the UN Global Compact. There are several big businesses in South Africa that are doing that. We all saw the keynotes last night, and the gentleman here is building businesses in communities that's empowering the communities, that is keeping as much of the proceeds of the business within the community for the improvement and betterment of the community, to the full extent that others who may not be benefiting directly from the business are emulating some of the things they are doing. You see how most of the houses around their shops are now painted in similar colors as their actual shops. That is solidarity. That is the community recognizing that the work that is being done by this business is impactful, to the point that they are emulating. And they say copying is the highest form of flattery. Now, sometimes the word sustainability has a bad rap. It's like the word woke. So I joke amongst my friends, and I'm going to extend that to you, to say the word woke has no meaning. It might have had a meaning when it was first invented, created, coined, but today it has no meaning. So for those who are pro-woke, it means being active, being attentive, paying attention, being up there and doing. And for those who are anti-woke, it is the nickname they give everything they are displeased with. Certain parts of businesses or of a business will tell you, please don't bring your sustainability nonsense here. The most important thing here is to drive revenue, drive performance, and drive revenue. But whereas you are unfortunate and you are in the ESG team, and you need to look at the environment, you need to look at governance, you need to look at the impact of your behaviors or your business activities on society. You've got a large spreadsheet. You need every business area to give you inputs at the beginning of the year, their commitments for the year, and then you track every month or quarterly, as the case may be. And as soon as they see you walk in, they're walking out, or they're having a conversation and they keep quiet. But sustainability doesn't need to have a bad rap. But it is important that we know that it has a bad rap. And in most businesses, even with businesses that have made commitments towards one goal or the other, we've got the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, that is being promoted by the United Nations, which, if you look at them, they're a set of 16 goals, all of which, if met, makes the world a better place. And some businesses have identified their own roles, their possible contributions, and some are working towards it. And some have made commitments, but there are no foot soldiers, or there is no ripple effect from the team or the layer that made the commitment and the layer that needs to execute. And then I found out that most of the people in the layers that would execute would be at the Business Analysis Summit. So I thought to come talk to them. So that's why we're having this presentation. Sustainability is a way of rethinking solutions to businesses and society's challenges. So depending on where you work, so if you work in non-profit, there is a likelihood that most of your work would be focused on improving society. But if you work in business, in the past, your focus is primarily ensuring that business meets its key objectives. But going forward, we need to find a way to sneak in improving society, improving people as part of the key objectives of business. The current lay of the land when we build products is that you come up with an idea and you build. When you build, you take to the market, people either consume or not. Let's say they consume, you make some profit, you plow back some of the profit into improving the product, you make version 2, version 3, and all of that. And all of this cycle leads to or creates some waste. It may not be deliberate. You're asking me, okay, I work in a bank. How does a bank create waste? Where does the infrastructure that powers the bank go at the end of their useful life? The servers, the expensive servers and all that have a useful life of 5 years or 10 years. At the end of 10 years, where do we put them? That could be an example of business waste. You work in manufacturing, your dyeing process uses up a lot of water. At the end of the day, you need to get rid of the wastewater. How do you get rid of the wastewater? Do you pre-process before letting it back into the larger water body that the community depends on? Yeah, you could also argue that sometimes, look, the rule says that once you don't have more than 2 milliliters per million liters, you're fine. But you are a scientist, a business analyst who understands a bit of science, and you realize that even 1 milliliter, which is half of the recommendation, is affecting the water body, the aqua life in the water body negatively. Are you doing anything about it? Miles Kubeka said yesterday that 19 million South Africans go to bed every night without food in their stomach. I've worked that out to be about 33% of the population. If we are 60 million and 19 million is quite close to 20 million, so that's a third. But if I ask you, is that your reality? It isn't. If you shop at Woolworths, Spar, or any of the other retail outlets, you would have a hard time processing the fact that someone is going to go to bed that night without food because the aisles are full. It's a paradox. We have a lot in the same consistent, coherent society. We still have not enough. And you find that, people have said that we live in the most advanced time ever. We are the healthiest human beings have ever been, and that's true. 200 years ago, if you have a cut on your knee, that might be the end of your life. Today, you just need antibiotics if that leg gets infected. Malaria killed a lot of my grandparents and their cousins. Today, if you have malaria, sometimes it doesn't even register because you just stop by at the pharmacy. You don't need prescription. You just need to tell the pharmacist that you suspect that you have malaria, and they provide you with the right medicines, and you are well on your way. We live in a time of abundance, but in the same time, there's a lot of scarcity. The retail outlets get rid of all the products on their sell-by date. If not for organizations like Harvest SA, again, I'm referring to yesterday's keynote, those products, those expired or past sell-by date products will end up in landfills. Because there are also a lot of rules around who you can give those things to and how you can give them. And some of these rules were written by people in this room or their friends who work in the Department of Health or in the Department of Trade or wherever you. And because it is not their reality, because they have got tunnel vision, this is the sell-by date, the stores need to get rid of them without thinking whether this same product can still has a 2 or 3 day useful life, in which time we can get it to people who truly need them and they can consume them. This ends up in landfills, inadvertently creating business waste. The cost to society of business waste is skyrocketing. Every time there is not a single place to go to see what is the cost of waste to business or to society, but every time I look at the different sources, the numbers keeps going up every year, and some of the sources are quite credible because they've been tracking this for some time and they've got something to lose if they are wrong. Most business waste are avoidable. I think I made that point already. Sometimes they're avoidable, but sometimes they are not avoided because we are not paying attention. Sometimes they are not avoided because it is not my job. Sometimes they are not avoided because we don't know that we have a voice in the room, or we are afraid to be the lone voice in the room, the lone voice of reason. I'm proposing that in general, this is the crux of this presentation. In general, at the point of building, rather than building for a single purpose, can we build for reusability? Remember I asked, where does all of the hardware that powers core banking 10 years ago, where are they today? They've reached the end of their useful life. Is there a chance that if at the point of designing these systems, we had factored in reusability, modularity, and configurability, that they can be reconfigured for other uses? Could those servers power a small microgrid in Soweto, for example? Could those servers power a school lab? But I can assure you that some of those hardware have ended up or are well on their way to a dump somewhere. This model is applicable almost in every scenario you can think of. At the time when you are designing your new product, can you factor in purposeful design? Can you be purposeful to say, okay, this is the ultimate purpose of this system or this tool or this product. But when it reaches the end of its useful life, could it be such that somebody else somewhere can pick it up and use it for whatever else they want to use it for and give it a second opportunity at life? I feel that if we all adopt this model, we are likely to reduce waste. A lot less would go into the dumps, and we are likely to find new purposes for old things. We teach an old dog a new trick. So purposeful design involves deliberate. So you are deliberate. You stop in your tracks to say, okay, this is what I'm doing. Let's look at all of the the surroundings, the ancillary activities that surround this. It requires thoughtfulness. You need to be thoughtful. If you're not thoughtful, then there's no point. Hey, we need 100 new servers, and that's it. You place the order with HP or your preferred server provider, and that's where it ends. But when you're deliberate and thoughtful, and your plan is to ensure that whatever it is you're building can serve other purposes at the end of its useful life to you, that could be the basis of selecting who the vendor is. We live in a fast-paced, performance-driven society where everybody is performing. Majority of the time at work, you are performing. You want to show to the boss that you can get it done quickly. So maybe you need to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to ask some of these critical questions. And in a manner of speaking, build a legacy for yourself. So, well, the legacy might be such that nobody else sees it except you, but you know for a fact that if it hadn't been for your thoughtfulness, you would have ended up with perhaps cheaper items that have only one use and that serves no purpose afterwards, that increases business waste, that increases the negative effect of business on society, and that's where it ends. But because of your thoughtfulness, you are able to argue for an alternative path. So purposeful design, as I've defined it here, is that it involves deliberate, thoughtful considerations for what is being designed or built to have a useful life beyond its original purpose, such that in part, as part of, I keep talking about the servers and all that. The servers on their own don't do anything. They have to be part of something larger. In part or as a whole, the design can get a new lease on life at the end of their first useful life. You probably won't find this definition anywhere except I publish it, but I synthesize this from multiple different sources. So, Olu, you've been talking about the negative effects of business on society. You've been talking about the work businesses are doing, the commitments businesses are making to stymie this and all of that. How do I, an intermediate BA at ABSA or at FNB or at MTN, how do I influence anything? How do I get anything done? Well, I've got this heuristic here. Heuristics are shortcuts for thinking or for taking action, depending on the state you are currently in. I think it's important that at any point, remember I said that we need to be thoughtful, we need to be deliberate and thoughtful. In that being deliberate and that thoughtfulness, just some of the questions that can help us tease out opportunities for purposeful design. Can an existing solution be reused or extended to satisfy the current business needs? Of course, that would also require that you talk to your colleagues, so you know what's happening in the core banking division versus what is happening at the customer, the CSR division and all that. And that way you can know if CSR had purchased servers that are over capacity for their needs, and you can borrow some of those capacities for what you need to build. Today, not enough of those conversations have been had. So you find out that businesses have acquired multiple capacities that is beyond their need. And it's not because they are designing for excellence. It's because teams don't talk to themselves. And as such, teams don't know what already exists and that can be leveraged. Can a new solution be built in such a way that can be extended in new ways to meet new needs? That goes back to all of the things I've been hammering on. You need to ask yourself, what we are designing as a team here now, what we're building, the product we're looking to get to the market. Is there a way we can get this done such that at the end of its useful life to the customer, in part or in as a whole, it can have a second life? Let me give you an example. It might not resonate and it might. You look at, okay, I'll use these bottles. You look at these bottles here. These bottles are quite highly reusable. You ask me why? The purpose of the bottle is to contain water for use conveniently in places like this. But nothing stops us from filling it up with tap water when we get home and putting it in the fridge. I don't know if that is the thought process of the guys behind the bottled water or not, but that is sustainability in a way, in a sense. Also, I already spoke about this. Will the solution create a single-use or disposable artifact? Remember, if you were at the keynote yesterday, the speaker mentioned that certain people in certain demography or certain economic brackets, they buy in small packets. And that has the unintended consequences that their neighborhood where they live is, what's the word? They have a problem of refuse management because now there is a lot of disposable items. But imagine if the bags that these products come in can naturally dissolve. When you put them in the dump, they can quickly become soil. I used to know the word, but now it eludes me. Yeah, it can be used for composting. That's you might find that a product manager somewhere is thinking, how do we ensure that this, without increasing the cost to the customer or the cost to the business, how do we ensure that biodegradable? See, that's what I was looking for. How do we ensure that this packet is biodegradable so that it doesn't become a problem or a nuisance to the users? These are some of the thoughts that we need to be having. These are some of the discussions that we need to be having. And I feel that, again, going back to my example of woke and how sustainability has got a bad rap, I find that most people who talk about sustainability are saying it or are viewed by their peers as just being goody two shoes. Yeah, the only one that is saying, yeah, we need to take care of the environment and all of those kind of things. But then when they ask you, what is the effect? How does our work affect the environment negatively or affect people negatively? Or how does your argument that we should make these accommodations and those accommodations, how do they improve society? We find out that majority of the time, besides the talking points, we don't have substance. And when people see that it's all icing, no cake, people walk away and credibility is lost. So it's super important that you understand the issues and the lay of the land for yourself. First, get an education. Understand what the real issues are. There are social battles, social issues of social interest that have no interest to me. Either because I've studied them and I realize that I have no power whatsoever to solve them, or they affect such a marginal portion of society, and that marginal portion is distant from me. But there are other areas where the problem is not marginal and where the problem is not that far removed from me, and where I understand it as an expert or as a specialist in that area, and I get involved. And one of such is that I feel that there is not enough talk or conversation around the subject of a triple bottom line, and not enough VAs are driving those conversations in the different businesses that they work for. And that's why I'm here. This is what I can do about it. It is important to also evaluate existing commitments and realities. You'll be surprised how many businesses in South Africa have made one commitment or the other to sustainable living, to sustainability, to looking after the planet, to looking after the people and all that. But like I said earlier in my talk, there's a disconnect between the people or the layer that makes the commitment and the layers that need to get the work done. So it's important that once you think, okay, yeah, the planet is for all of us. We need to look after it. The people around us should benefit directly or indirectly from the work that this business is doing. It's important to then see, as my business, the business I'm working for, made a commitment. And if you run your own business, it's a good time to start asking, what kind of commitments do I make? Is it that I commit to train 2 people every year that can come into the workforce, that can come out of the labor market and come into the workforce every year? There is always something we can do to ensure that business has a positive effect on society. Influence where you can and who you can. So if you understood any part of this presentation to mean that you should go to Santin Square tomorrow with a large placard and saying that we need sustainability, that's not what I'm saying. People probably will not listen to you. They will laugh at you. If I walk past, I might not stop to say hello as well. Never mind, I sowed the seed. But no, in your friend groups, in your business analysis community of practice, in your small work team, your agile teams, bring up the issues. Start like that. I always argue that influence is not about using legal power. It's about showing examples, it's about showing commitment, it's about sharing knowledge, and it's about being sincere. When people see that you are sincere, no matter how strange your ideas seem at first, they begin to get interested. And I say rinse and repeat. I've also argued that it's okay to be the lone voice of reason, but you need to make sure that you are reasoning. Remember that 2 slides ago, it's important that you understand the issues and the lay of the land. You don't just want to be the guy that bears the placard, but you want to be the guy that brings, if what you see that is lacking in the room is knowledge about the lay of the land, that might be all you need to, that might be the seed you need to sow. That might be all you need to do. Because don't just stop at the headline. You see, most political arguments today argues at the tip. You find most of our political differences, and sometimes religious differences too, it's the tip. Imagine a pyramid. It's the tip. But the real issues are at the bottom of the pyramid. But we are so blinded by our rage at the other person's opinion that we don't bother to look at the depth of the issue of the subject. There are people that, in fact, there's a term called greenwashing. Once you mention sustainability in some people's minds, it goes straight to greenwashing. I never liked paper straws. I didn't enjoy them. But they were forced down our throats at some point as an absolute total replacement to plastic straws. Yes, I personally made a commitment to reduce the number of plastic straws I use. So I started drinking straight from the bottle. That's also an option. Sometimes the way people have gone around campaigning for sustainability and all things that relate to sustainability is responsible for the bad image that sustainability has. My wife works in academia, and I tell her that you guys do a great piece of work in your laboratories. And when you come and tell us, members of the proletariat, the public, you are using the same words and lingos that you use with your peers in the university. Can you speak in a language that I would understand? Can you make it relatable? I used the bottled water as an example. I was going to use a different example that could have sounded strange. But I looked for something that was in the room that approximates the point I'm trying to make, and I use it as an example. It doesn't matter to me whether I sound intelligent or not. What is important to me is that have I passed the message across? So in conclusion, you may not move the needle on day one. So let's say you are committed to sustainability or whatever other agenda, purposeful agenda. You might not move the needle on day one. But remember, the rock that is being hit at the same point by water, one day the water will create a crack in the rock. One day the water will break the rock apart and maybe wash it away. And then a part is created. It could take 100 years, it could take 10 years, it could take a century, but it gets done. Thank you.